Everybody's Dr. Cheng here with Dr. Francesco Amico, and we are super happy to talk about the latest publication and data that was made possible from PrimeMyBody. And what we really want to do today is to actually talk about the study. We'll be really brief, real basic, but we're going to make a big impact on what the study actually means. So, Dr. Amico, happy to have you on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Great. So let's talk about the study. I'll give it a little bit of intro to the study, and then I'll have you talk about what the data really means for the world of neurology. When we did the study, we wanted to look at a population that were high risk for developing concussions early on in life, and what better population than the National Football League to pick from. And so we looked at brains using this device called BrainView. It's a quantitative EEG device, and we look at the brain functionalities. So we have this cap on, and then we were looking at each portion of the brain and what it was doing. So we recorded them as what's called a baseline, or before administration of focus, which is the extract, the hemp extract. And then we looked at it right afterwards and seeing what the changes were. Now, this has never been done before. And the fact that we're doing it in a very specific population that's hard to achieve is a very big deal, because a lot of those guys don't want to talk about the concussions. They don't want to talk about the traumatic hits. They don't want to talk about their psychosocial emotional states. And some people went through some very terrible times from a mentality point of view. And so, Dr. Amico, when I shared with you that data, what was your initial impression about this?
It was very exciting. Well, first of all, because I had the opportunity to work with a population of participants who, during their whole life, have been exposed to concussion, very likely to get impact in their central nervous system very, very, very frequently. And we know that head trauma, head concussion, is very likely to accelerate neurodegenerative conditions or to trigger in some respect. So it's very, very serious and sometimes underestimated, I would say, field. People enjoy sports, enjoy high impact sports, whether it be boxing, whether it be of course American football, rugby, but very few people think that the people who actually play professionally or very often are very likely to get injured very seriously and put at risk their life. So sometimes, as you're saying, patients can't really talk about, well, not players, sorry, can't really talk about, for different reasons, contract reasons, for because they're, the nature of the injury. And sometimes because there's no actual symptom. So they're not given any drug to ameliorate, to improve their symptoms, because there's nothing really. But we know that preparations like focus, CBD, including CBD, CBG, and THC-free, by the way, and terpenoids, can improve cognitive functions, and especially in populations who have been exposed to trauma, to head trauma. What we found was interesting, because we used again BrainView, which allows you to automate all the detection of very key metrics of brain activity, especially when it comes to cognition. So we found an improvement in what we call event P300. Which is an event-related potential. I'm not going to go into details, but it's a measure that has been for many years has been associated to cognitive functions, and we know that when there are anomalies in this measure, there's something going on there. So
Right. So P300, what we're talking about right now, P300 is one of the measurements that are improved. And this is one of the most studied biomarkers
yeah,
of cognitive function or brain function ever. And so this is not something to take lightly. This is a very interesting biomarker that's been used as a standard for cognitive function for many years. And
yeah,
so, before, it's like you said, it's like, well, you get concussed a bunch of different times and you don't necessarily have any symptoms or that you know of, right?
yeah.
But sometimes a little bit of depression, a little bit of personality changes, aggression, emotionality,
Irritability.
uh, yeah, addictability, right, of the brain. These are things that are actually, symptoms, but because it's not talked about, it's not out there. And so when you have this marker called P300 that changed on the actual mapping, that actually gives us an indication. Now, this is an actual number that's maybe correlated with
Mhm.
the cognitive function of a human.
Yeah,
We see that change. That is a very big deal.
it is. And one other major that I'd like to mention, which is I think very relevant to sports, is a ratio that we call between low frequencies and higher frequencies. It's called theta beta ratio. Now this ratio is called has been related to attentional performance, meaning how we can use areas of our brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, to control really our emotions, and they are regulated by another area. It's called the limbic system. Now, what happens is that when we are stressed, especially when we're stressed, of course, we anxiety is triggered, and when we're under pressure, especially during a very important match, so anxiety builds up, and there's a whole state of stress going on. So our prefrontal cortex, if it works efficiently, can control that anxiety, can still favor cognition against anxiety, or at least can keep the anxiety in a kind of a positive, give it a positive momentum. So and in a way, altogether, the theta beta ratio, we can say it measures resilience under stress. So
Mm,
what we noticed is that immediately after the the administration of focus, this ratio went down, which means that resilience, that the cognitive functions and resilience improved. So altogether, I think is highly relevant. These results that we got are highly relevant to a sports context,
right, right.
to
So,
athletes in general, especially those who engage in high impact sports.
right. So the theta to beta ratio, another marker just as important as the P300. And you're right, it has been used as the biomarker of attention. It's been used as an adjunct to the diagnosis of ADHD and ADD in children.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the most published biomarkers of brain resilience. How well is the brain to go and no go, to modify certain processes, so it's able to receive information, pay attention on it, which is basically a performance of our brain. And so now we have two biomarkers. We have the original biomarker P300, which is a marker of cognition, thinking. We have a second biomarker, theta to beta ratio, which is a marker
Mhm.
of attention and focus, right? Now, we have those two biomarkers having a significant impact right after the administration of focus in these former professional players. And so, what else does that? Is there anything else we know of that's able to affect these two biomarkers in research that we know of?
So usually there's so these two biomarkers can be modified, of course, by cognitive stimulants, but they have cognitive stimulants we know they might have some side effects, like
Exactly.
including, for example, insomnia or can affect mood. So it really depends on the patient. But there's also other less invasive approaches like neurofeedback. There's also in some cases when there's TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, which it's an invasive process. So basically there's electricity, well, not a current delivered through directly to the brain. So we want to there are many, of course these are just a few. I think the trick is to get the brain to function more effectively, more efficiently, without as many side effects.
Right, absolutely. So yes, there are other things that can do this, but they're in the category of things that have side effects, medications, right? Or medical procedures that can be relatively aggressive, right? Or you need a trained professional to monitor. But those are generally the two categories that I know of. But the effect of this on cognition has been debated for a long period of time in the world of cannabinoids, because it was originally thought that the only way to achieve this is if you have to have THC.
Yeah,
We've proven that's not the case. There's zero
yeah,
THC in
yeah,
the actual focus formulation. And
yeah,
so that's something that's a big win, I think.
yeah,
And not only that, the THC carries its own risks, and but even though it's relatively safe, it does carry its own risks. But now we have something that has a great safety profile to it. Now,
yeah,
focus is not a pharmaceutical drug or anything like that. So, technically we can't say that it has side effects or no side effects, because technically it's just focus. But what we do know is that in order to achieve similar things in the brain that we saw in these former NFL players, more aggressive things have to be done in the field of medicine for these players. That includes either prescription medicines or prescription procedures done for
yeah,
the brain. So this is a very non-invasive and it's a very safe thing for people wanting to develop sort of that mental resilience or cognitive resilience or brain resilience, whatever we want to call it. What else do you think we can glean from the data as a
on the
conclusion?
data. I think my message to whoever wants to try a CBD product is that again, THC shouldn't be there, simply because it activates a subclass of receptors in the brain that can cause a lot of complications, including there's several there's many years of research showing that very kind of odd things to be triggered in the brain. So and if nothing else, focus has been shown there's zero THC in focus. So it is, I think, a good candidate for to alleviate and let's say improve, optimize brain function and in athletes who are very likely to receive on a regular basis and impact mechanical stimulation to their central nervous system.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you for that wonderful conclusion. For those of you coming to Momentum 2022 in San Diego, I will see you there and I'll give my talk I'm very excited about into my understanding of where the future of brain is going to be, especially in the world of cannabinoids. So I want to thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Dr. Amico, as well.